our next speaker is Matthis Janssen. Matthis, are you on the call?
Yes. Hello. Can you hear me?
Hear you. I can hear you.
Oh, I can't hear you. All right.
See me as well?
All right, yeah, sure.
I can hear you. It's a little bit, maybe you can turn it a little bit louder if it's possible, but I can hear you.
Okay, we'll try, yeah. Test.
Then
It's
it
better now?
should work.
Hello?
But I think all of you can hear Najib, so he can do his introduction also without hearing you, because I know you're online.
I'm just going to say hi, Matthis. Hi, how you doing? I see you on the other screen over there. Good looking there. All right.
It seems like it's working now.
Perfect. Hi, Matthis.
Hi, good to see you.
All right. Yeah, good to see you and good to hear you also. Again, our next speaker is Matthis Janssen. Matthis is shareholder and head of client services at Yojava. He has been passionate about SEO ever since he scaled his own lifestyle blog to more than 10,000 visitors per month. And he discovered ways to generate revenue from organic traffic sources. He today will be sharing with us his knowledge about how to build and execute a state-of-the-art content strategy that creates a long-term demand for your product. Please welcome everyone, Matthis Janssen.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and kicking things off, we already topped off talking about demand, and this is where I really want to pick it up from. So here we are. Hi all, Matthis here, talking about content strategy that creates demand and scales revenue. Thanks for that introduction already. But I think first, before diving right in, we do have to build some trust. So you might ask yourself, who the hell is this guy? We already talked about a couple of friends of mine actually scaling that lifestyle blog from a fresh domain to 10,000 visitors a month. And it was actually about fitness. You might not recognize this based on this picture. So don't worry, I was only part of the SEO and content part, not giving fitness advice. But now I'm actually fast forwarding, heading the operations team at Yojava. We are the #1 in the agency for SaaS and tech in DACH with over 40 B2B accounts under management and over 35 stellar B2B SaaS experts in our team executing paid and organic strategies for our client. And here are some logos. You can see that we actually know what we are talking about. But let's stop here and actually start into content. And this is a topic that I'm so super passionate about, because content is actually what can drive demand and can build demand also, not just utilizing demand that is already there, but also build upon that. And you might know that only 3 to 9% of your audience at any given moment is ready to buy. This means that content can influence all those decisions. And here we at Yojava, we really like to distinguish these by statements they have further down the funnel. So the top 70% might say, we do not even have a problem. They are not even aware that the current things they are doing, the current solutions they are using are not as good as they could be. Next up, people might say, well, okay, I see it. We do have a problem, but there is no urgency actually. So then it's about creating that urgency. Again, through content, you can do all of this in order to convince them, okay, we actually do need to solve it right now, right here. And then afterwards, it's really just about picking what vendor will work best for that person and where can they sign. So creating a frictionless buying experience. With that being said, the traditional way of doing content marketing, and this is why it's so great that things kicked off with talking about demand already, is really roughly this 6-step process of doing keyword research, focusing a lot on volume. Where can we see the most people searching for the things, for the topics we are passionate about? Then analyzing the SERPs. What is the search intent, right, for best ranking probability? How much words should we use? What keywords should we use? What images should we use? Publish and pray, observe, and iterate. There's one problem with this though, and this is that traditional content marketing often focuses on driving traffic, but hardly moves the revenue needle. And especially in times like these where marketers are asked to do more with less, your manager might come up to you and say, okay, show me the revenue. Where have you actually impacted pipeline? And now that most of the traditional content marketing focuses on a top 70% that we just reviewed, it's time to create content for the people already involved more in the buying process and to convince them that your product is the best solution. So what should we do instead? Again, coming down to that 6-step process, we should conduct qualitative research, identify existing volumes, produce product-led content, launch, observe, and iterate. In this presentation, we will focus on the first 4 of those steps, because I'm sure you're already experts in the part of observing and iterating that content once that's live. But what do I mean by conducting qualitative research? Here, it's super important, and this is the main idea, to focus on real customer pains and not just search volume. But how do you actually go about it? First, it starts with having a conversation. And this conversation can be had with sales, product, customer success, or, and this is most important, your actual customers. So sales, product, customer success, they might have already available resources, they might already talk to your customers, have something for you to build your content strategy with, but it's rarely enough, and we see this a lot with our clients, that marketing does not talk enough to its customers the way they should actually do it, and in the volume that they should do it too. So now the question obviously arises, maybe you grab a coffee with customer success and they tell you a little bit more about your customers' needs, but this is not concrete enough to actually build that strategy upon it. So here we have identified 4 leading questions at Yoyaba, which need to be answered for every buyer before they can make that purchase. And this is really going again along that funnel. Why should someone change what they're doing? Why is it not good what they're doing? Why is it not efficient? Why is it causing problems and friction? Why should it be now? Why is it urgent that they actually do it right now, do the change? And what problems arises if they keep doing what they are doing? How should they change from an old solution to your solution? And why should it be you and not any of your competitors, or even an old solution that is already in place? So to go one step deeper, actually, there are roughly 25 questions we have identified along those 4 guiding ones that will help you get the most out of those interviews we just discussed. And this is starting off with the first 2, why change? One question you could ask is, what are the disadvantages when the personas you care about, pick one specific persona here, I would suggest, is building a topic you're passionate about, your product is trying to solve, with an old solution. It's pretty obvious, right? So you really try to educate them on why things can be better when moving to your solution. Then it should be why now, creating that urgency, coming back to that once more. And here you could ask, what are current challenges of the industry that personas involved in regards to the topic he or she is passionate about? Next up, just giving a few more examples here for the last 2 questions is, what resources does the persona need to switch from an old solution to your solution? And what makes your solution superior to the one they're already using? So within those brackets, you can just fill in your whatever you need, whatever your persona is, whatever your industry is. And after the talk, I will actually give away the whole 25 questions. But one thing that makes all the difference is spending time to doing this the correct way, really booking those interviews and actually taking time to prepare them, because this will build the foundation of your content strategy, and this will have such a big impact on how it's going to perform. And the one thing that makes all the difference actually is ask why 5 times. So you might sit in an interview with customer success and you ask them, why is our solution better than what they're currently doing? And then they might say, because we deliver better results. But this is not actually deep enough. We have to go a step further. You might ask then, okay, but why are we actually delivering those better results? And then the answer might be, because we have better data quality. That's still not where you're trying to go. You might ask then, okay, but why do we actually have better data quality? And then you kind of hit the jackpot. They might tell you about exclusive corporations they have. They might tell you about specific vendors that are only available for you, specific data sources that only you can access. And this will be a great USP and something you can actually communicate in your content then to push forward and convince even tech-savvy people to buy into your product and go further in that buying experience. Now that you have taken your time, interviewed your customers, interviewed all the departments, and put it together, you should build your content cluster and organize the insights available. We have actually discovered that using these 4 guiding questions is a great formula to structure your content strategy. So you could have 2 blog articles for each of those stages, make sure you interlink them with each other, obviously, and then see that you can drive the traffic that you're catching with the first 2 questions, where 70% of the people are in that mindset right now, and drive that to the lower parts of the funnel where search volume is scarce. A great example of a tech company already executing this is Slack. So obviously Slack is all about collaborating at work. And they have crafted specific content pieces that will answer those 4 questions within the funnel. So here we're going to review them. The first 2 are, actually I have to make this a little bit bigger, 5 proven methods for boosting employee morale and 5 tips for effective collaboration at work. These are your general pieces you catch a lot of traffic with, and here you can already find ways to integrate your product, to pitch your product almost, to make sure that it's linked, the topic's always linked to the solution you're providing. Obviously, don't overdo it. You don't want to be too salesy. You still want to provide tons of value, even when people don't decide to use your product. But here you have the great opportunity to bring your name up front. Then they decided to go with why strong company culture is key to post-pandemic success. Obviously, the pandemic did change quite a lot, and especially for collaborating at work. So Slack picked this up in order to educate their user base about why now is the time, creating that urgency, why now is the time to change things up, switch things up, and make things more effective. And now the second example is something that's quite interesting. Now is your moment to reinvent work, it says. You might think there's no search volume involved here, and this is actually quite true. But still, they have found ways to distribute the content in order for people who are already in that mindset, already needing that step, needing that urgency, to capitalize on that and educate them further. Afterwards, they created how-to articles about transitioning to remote work, for example, and obviously, in the end, providing detailed information about current customers, how they actually use their product, and what they can do to solve even smaller problems. And this is just a very broad overview, but you can go a lot deeper than this. Really try when building this foundation, to go into the micro pains, the micro problems some people are facing in their day-to-day work experience, and then craft content along those 4 questions. So for a social intranet, that might be the ability to publish an article or like an organic posting, not just on one platform, but on 3, 4 multiple platforms at once. So then there's a hassle of always trying to change up the content, posting on the different sites. But here you can actually have it in one sitting, on one platform, and that might make things more effective, more efficient. And this is a great example of like a micro pain you're solving and something you can specifically speak to. And here's a bonus. So feel free, and I really advise you to do it, share it with your broader marketing team. We know that marketing teams should talk to their customers a lot more than they do oftentimes. So if you take the approach and actually take ownership in doing that, and aligning your performance marketing team and aligning your organic social team with those findings, they will be in a much better position to speak to the same pains, speak in the same way, have the same messaging even, align themselves between each other. And so you have a coherent strategy that is really centered around content, and content not being an isolated part of the strategy, trying to drive traffic all the time. Now, and I'm sure this is something you're all experts with already, it's time to identify existing volumes. So pick your favorite tool when it comes to keyword research. Use Google Autocomplete, and use also other existing and available tools to then dive deep into what search volumes are available based on the foundation, based on the interviews you just conducted. A good example here might be how to measure content marketing ROI. This is a classic example for long tail niche kind of keywords that specifically solve a pain. You can really easily imagine someone facing that problem right now, having the manager in their neck saying, I really need those numbers. I really need to see how you impact the performance in terms of business impact, in terms of driving SQLs maybe, in terms of driving pipeline. And here, if you answer those questions, those very concrete pains, you're in a very good position to have a real impact on the pipeline. Because you did the interviews first, you will naturally end up with high intent, bottom funnel content ideas. No need to hierarchy, no need of a hierarchy when analyzing like all the different search intents, etc. You will just know what the pains are and how you need to speak to them. Now it's time to produce the content. And here a product-led content approach is something that is working very great. And Hotjar is a good example of a company, a tech company, already executing it to a great degree. Here is an example of an article that I published about user signals and what they can tell you about the next steps, optimizing pages, etc., how you would expect from a company like Hotjar. And really the first thing that's super important is to show off your product and include more product screenshots and GIFs from your features. Really push it into the content and not just use one, but use an array of different formats here. Like here they have the heat map about scrolling, but they then also have the session recordings showing off. And what this will do is, while you're solving that problem, you also show them directly what your product can do to assist with this. And this will lead them also to scratch that itch, basically, that they want to jump right into the fray and right into solving their problem and testing out the product. Now for Hotjar, it works specifically well because they have a low friction offer. And this is something that should always be, at least in the low friction way, be displayed when you have your content displayed in the blog format. This is now an example where they have the get started free conversion always displayed in the sticky header above. And you can always click it, fill out a short form and get short form and get going immediately. No hesitation needed, and basically implement the things you just learned from the content you consumed. Very powerful way of educating about your product without making it too pitchy, actually. But still, best practice should be covered, and this is what they do as well. They have a link table of contents. They have further CTAs to convert. They might be overdoing it a little bit, I have to admit, so you can definitely tone it down a notch, at least for my liking, but seems to work for them, so great for that. And they also have heavy internal product linking. This is something a lot of people do already, that they always try to find ways with the right anchors to then move traffic to those product pages because they know those are the converting pages. However, if you show off your product and actually include more screenshots of your product in those blog posts, you have a way higher likelihood that people will be more interested in the features you just showed and will check out those product pages a lot more to get deeper into what those tools can actually do for them. Lastly, they do also have a social sharing button involved. Now, a lot of people have the experience with social sharing buttons that actually there's no sharing happening. So I think in this case, though, if you actually increase the amount of pains you solve and increase the amount of contact you have with the product at hand, you have a higher probability of generating backlinks and also generating sharings that then can go viral, and you can boost your authority because people find it so much more valuable what you're producing, even if it's a smaller number of people in total that view your content. Now it's time to launch. And I mean, don't just publish your content, wait 4 to 6 months and see how the traffic is going or how much the ranking has improved, but really launch those products. And here you should team up with the greater marketing team once more. And first thing you should do is promote it via organic social to really incorporate these mini launches, as you could say. So bonus points, obviously, to get design involved as well and get like a cool carousel, 3-step carousel, like in this example involved, where they distill all the information in that blog post and publish it, in this case, via LinkedIn Organic, and then have a link to that blog post. Now, you might think, okay, people who are following my LinkedIn company profile are already customers. How will this drive revenue? But one part of driving revenue is also increasing retention. And if you have a focus on showcasing more features of your product that solve problems, more creative ways to use your product, that will go a great way in making sure that people are keeping to be engaged with your product, and also will use it in more different ways. Because one thing that's really tough on growth is a high churn rate, and if people stop using your product, that will be a sure sign that they will stop paying soon. Next up, you can promote via paid social as well, so team up with the performance marketing here. Cognizant did even one step further, and they had the CMO write a post about a topic they care about. They just screenshotted that post and put it as an ad out there. And this was actually, and they published it just a few days ago, one of the best performing ads for the longest time for them. No creative needed, very close alignment with the content team, as you see here. And it had crazy, I think like 9% click-through rates. So here, this is really about driving new business, right? This is really about getting the content you produce that is maybe a little bit lower in search volume to as much people as possible to educate them at broad. Finally, you should promote it with the newsletter as well, like LinkedIn does in this example. So here, again, you have a good mix of existing customers, again, boosting retention, but you also will have a lot of people who maybe signed up for a webinar, that maybe they downloaded a gated content piece in the past. And they will have, so you will have those data points available. They might be signed up for the newsletter, but they might still have not, like one of those 4 questions we talked about, they might have not answered at any given moment. And if you have those content pieces produced and you push them forward to them, there's a very high likelihood that they will actually engage with the newsletter a lot more, and you push them over that edge to actually make that purchase. Finally, and really lastly this time, it's really observe and iterate. So now that you have created a bigger ecosystem of people pushing your content, the whole market team at scale working all together, you have way more signals available. This might be how much referral traffic is starting new trials from those blog posts or from the newsletter, how many people are viewing those blog posts. It might also be how much sharing is happening, how much reposting is happening on those social platforms. And these are all great signals to identify what you should do more of and what you should do less of. So I hope this will give some great tips on how you can accelerate your content in terms of solving real customer problems and generate demand and revenue in the end this way, having a way easier time to attribute it to because of the low friction you just implemented. It will be way easier time to just identify where people are coming from that sign up. If you're now interested to get into action, just scan the code. It will be a link to my LinkedIn profile, and I'll be sending you those 25 questions we have identified, this questionnaire basically through, no problem. So with this, thank you so much for your attention and hope there was some valuable insights here.
Thank you so much, Matthis. Thank you so much, Matthis. Great.
Yeah, no worries. Hi.
So there are 1 or 2 questions in the chat. My God, I need glasses. First one is Robert, and he's asking whether if you have any advice on short form to collect leads versus long form.
Yeah, so to collect leads, I'm assuming he's talking about gated content. So I'm always a big fan of not gating content that you don't really need to gate. I think short form or long form, if you want to collect those leads, can work wonders both. It's not really about what kind of content it is. It can be a white paper, ebook, a blog article, or like a glossar, as long as it solves a problem. That's really the point here. As long as it's really going down into what people are doing every day and how you can make their life more efficient.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. I hope that answers your question, Robert. Next one is, it's Darren. He's asking, I know the quality of the content is paramount, but what about length? Some recommend 2,000 plus words, but readers usually feedback that the content is too long.
Yeah, that's a great question. So this will really depend, and then going back to those basics of analyzing the SERPs here. you really have to identify what's the environment that you're operating in. So if you are trying to rank for search queries that are more in the definition type, very top funnel type of queries, very short form content is obviously better even for ranking. But if it's about like how-to guides, like these big things trying to provide a lot of value, 2,000 words is something that's thrown around a lot. But I think it's way more granular than that. So I would really advise to just look at the five first ranking sites for any given query, and then just look at how many words do they use, and then you can kind of get a feeling on what Google also tries to get at.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. Another one would be, how much time would you give a content strategy before you can decide whether it was a success or not?
Yeah, that's also a very good question. This will really depend on how good of an alignment you have in the marketing team. So if you can get those mini launches really going, there can be an initial burst of results, of signups already happening from the very get-go. Although usually you should take 4 to 6 months to evaluate the content program entirely.
Okay, perfect. And maybe from your experience, what are the most common mistakes when building a content strategy? And if the mistakes have been made by a company, how would you solve them?
Yeah, I think just diving a lot more into the research part, not being so stuck on always going for the highest volumes, but really try to think one step further in a way that how will this be helpful for anyone reading the blog post that is in market for my product. So you wouldn't really care too much about maybe freelancers, if that's not your target audiences, that try to get like the latest insights about metadata or whatever the blog post is really about. But think about how will this improve their life, and that will really determine the quality of the content and the way you help them and the way you attract them to your business.
Great, perfect. Then we have another one over here that says, what KPIs should be measured when switching to a product-led content approach?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite ones. So in the first few months, really depending on how much of those mini launches you can get going, search traffic is still super relevant. But definitely long-term thinking, you should move to a way in which you can attribute SQLs or pipeline generated by content through referral traffic or influence pipeline by marketing, really. I think those will have the biggest impact and make life easiest for you, also talking to your manager in terms of what the impact of your work actually is.
Perfect. Thank you. Maybe one last question, since we have a minute left. The strategy that you outlined in your presentation, could you tell us whether there are any more companies that you know that you're able to speak about that are actually actively executing the strategy successfully? Can you tell us something about that?
Yeah, so obviously always happy to chat about this as well, but I think Cognism is doing a great job at it lately. And we do see generally a trend for bigger tech companies to move in that direction and move more to this demand generation approach of creating content. So really try to look out for, in your industry, who are the biggest players and are they actually executing it? If they are not executing it, that's great. That's a big opportunity for it. And if they do, maybe you can learn something from them.